Welcome to the 513 podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nickel, also known as Bengals. So don't have any co-hosts with me today, but I'm here with a very special guest. You know him from Twitter. You know him as the Joe Mixon lover. He will talk shit to any guy who says the wrong opinion. Zim Whodey, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good, man. That's what they know me as, the Joe Mixon lover. Get out of here. Like what? Nah. But I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, man, great having you on here. Great seeing what you've been saying this offseason. It's probably arguably the biggest offseason for Cincinnati since around like 2020, 2021. So obviously there's a lot to discuss for the Bengals, but for today, we're just going to take a deep dive into it. And which, just to get this out of the way, let's get started with running back, Joe Mixon. Obviously, you're in the let's keep Mixon, but I want to know, if we keep Mixon, what's your plan? And if we cut Mixon, what's your plan? Because I know you like Antonio Gibson, but is there any other options you like?
Free agent running backs? Not really. I don't. I explore like all the options on all of them. None of them really make sense to me that much. Like, do you have some that you think are like legit?
I mean, for me, it's just like my opinion on Mixon is you should only cut him if you have a plan. Because, like, if you're going to cut him and you just sign A.J. Dillon and get another running back round 5, what the hell does that do? That's a downgrade. You don't cut people to have downgrades. That's the whole point of what you want the money for. But if you're like, let's say you want Tony Pollard, for some reason you go out and get a tier 1, tier 2 running back, then okay, that's a good plan. If you draft a running back round 2, like Jalen Wright, Jonathan Brooks, Braylon Allen, like one of those high tier guys, okay, I understand it. That's all I have to say with Mixon is like, keep him if your only goal is to just do what you've been doing before, as in, oh, we have Chris Evans and Travion Williams. We don't need a replacement for Pirine. And then, oh, we have Pirine. We don't need a replacement for Gio, and that took 2 years to fully flesh out for that replacement to work. But yeah, it's not just you cut Mixon for the money. You cut him if you have a plan with it. That's all I got to say on it. It's like, what are you going to use that money on?
Yeah, I mean, even like a running back like Tony Pollard, to me, is like coming off the worst season. Like, you know, like if you go look at all the guys, like even like Zach Moss is like, it's probably like, I'll throw you like an alley-oop. I feel like that's like one of the better running backs that would be out there. He still would get like $4 or $5 million. So you're not really saving that much money. And then he's never played more than 13, 14 games. Tony Pollard just came off like a way worse season than Mixon. Let's say you said, like, if you were to cut Mixon, right? Saquon Barkley is a guy, but think about him. He just came off a season where he just rushed for 4 yards a carry, and he's never available as like Mixon is, and he will want way more money. So, like, to me, none of the scenarios make sense. Like, I've never been presented with an argument that I felt like really worked on releasing Mixon. Like, there's no better options in free agency. But I will say in the draft, though, I thought like last year I wanted him to draft Roschon Johnson. I thought he would have been a direct Pirine replacement. He was one of the best pass blocking running backs I thought in there. He's a tough runner. I thought some of that short yardage stuff, they could have gave it to Mixon. Then now I'm just looking at guys like Braylon Allen, who you mentioned or whatever. I like Bucky Irvin. I like a lot of those runners. On all those scenarios, I'm with it. Like even if the Bengals said this might be a little too rich for my blood, but say they went and got the best running back in the draft, like Ed Benson, right? From Florida State. I could see it. I just don't see it in the third round. But if it was some crazy world that could do it like in a fourth or something, I would be all for it. To me, they have too many other needs to like try to go and get like one of the top running backs. But I do think that they do need to get the running back for the future on the roster. And then you kind of have like a running back by committee. You're younger than me, but before when they had James Brooks, they kept on drafting, second round running backs. This is a little bit even before my time, a little bit. but they would draft him and none of them could beat him out. Mixon, there you remember when he got here, Gio and Jeremy Hill were on the roster too. This is what the Bengals do, is like they keep like the really good running back there, and then the new guys gotta beat them out. And if you can't beat them out, then you're just gonna keep on every offseason saying, let's cut Mixon, because none of the dudes can beat him out. He just came off a 1,400 all-purpose yard season. Like, you know, he had another good season, and none of the running backs like a Chase Brown probably could have got more carries, but he wasn't available. And that's the point from a front office standpoint, that the people that I listen to in the front office, not the reporters and stuff like that don't like Mixon. Those people value the durability and the availability of Mixon and him not fumbling.
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, saying the whole I'm young thing, I mean, to be honest, first season I was a fan was Mixon's rookie year, so I'm probably one of the biggest Mixon's fan there is. I mean, first jersey I bought, but yeah, Mixon, going to know a lot about what we're doing at running back in 1 week's time, but going to a position that no one really talks about, wide receiver. I don't mean like that T. Higgins crap. I'm talking about Tyler Boyd. What are we doing with slot receiver? Do you want us to get someone in free agency to replace Boyd, or the draft?
The draft. I think the wide receiver in the running back free agent market is terrible to me. I don't like any of those guys. Like it, because even a guy like a Darnell Mooney, who I do think is pretty good, or Curtis Samuel or something like that. If I'm going to pay that guy $5-6 million, why wouldn't I just give that extra money to T. Higgins? Or why wouldn't I just? I mean, I don't think Tyler Boyd should come back. But if Tyler Boyd is about to make like $8 million, why would I give it to one of those dudes? I'm going to just go to the draft. I already have Yoshivage on the roster. I got Charlie Jones. This wide receiver draft is crazy. I could see the Bengals in a crazy scenario if I don't think after his combine, but Brian Thomas at 18 will be like, whoa, because he has the ability to go inside and outside. You would have 1 year with T. Higgins, Brian Thomas, and Jamar Chase, which would be insane. Like, I know that we got to fix the trenches. We're going to go forward with some of the other position groups. But when you get further and further in the draft, like even like I mentioned Ladd McConkey, I think earlier today to a bunch of people, but like, you know, you start looking at that, or Malachi Corley and all these guys like that in the third. I'm a big Javon Baker fan. I think you can get him in the third because he just ran a 4.5. Like, there's so many dudes that you could replace whatever, you know, whatever's in free agency. You're going to get it for a fraction of the price. I don't like any of them guys, bro. Like when you go to my free agency stuff, like the guys that I like, they're all like in the trenches for real.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just Darnell Mooney or bust. I mean, my bros, we just like scream, we want Darnell Mooney at slot. Get Yoshi like 10 snaps a game as well, and you're probably set. But
what if you get to the draft and you got that, and then you're looking at the board and like, I'm telling you, there's about to be so many wide receivers. Like you like Darnell Mooney, I think Javon Baker is going to be better than him. And the only reason why I think he would even be available like at the back of the second or third is because he ran a 4.5. I think he's going to be insane in the NFL. I really love that kid. If he had ran like a 4.3, 4.4, he'd be like the back of the first. But because now he ran a 4.5, like, and he's not 6'4", like, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to like sell that to an NFL team. So like, man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of guys that are a lot like Darnell Mooney, but maybe even better, but they're cheaper and they're younger.
See, I mean, with Mooney, like at the very least, what I just want, try to get a slot receiver in free agency, because one thing I hate is you gotta draft a player just because you need to get him in the draft. Like you need a slot receiver, so you have to draft one. That's one thing the Bengals are great at. It's not, they can go best player available, and that's the great thing with them. So at the very least, try to get a Mooney or Samuel. You don't overpay for them, but yeah, I mean, for me, draft-wise, Roman Wilson, Michigan, round 2, Cook. But moving on to tight end, probably the most gamble you could put on any position. We have 0 guys on the roster, not even like some random practice squad guy. We have 0. Looks like Sample and Hudson's coming back, but who would you sign and who would you draft?
I would probably say a lot of people have been saying Noah Fant. The only problem with Fant to me is the $9 million that I think that he's about to make, or $10 million, like, as a little too high for me. In the combine, so many of them guys, they tested so well. The kid from Penn State, I think you probably can get him in like the 4th, 5th round, and his measurables are off the charts. And what I would do is probably get like a Jonnu Smith. I would entertain. I thought about this. I'm not a big fan of CJ Uzomah or Hayden Hurst coming back to the Bengals, but if CJ Uzomah was willing to come back to like the practice squad, be kind of like a locker room guy, rehab there. If an injury happens and you got CJ, I really feel like he's at the back end of his career, and we're one of the few teams I think that would even really take a real chance on him. If he was willing, and we told him that, hey, look, you're at the back of the depth chart and you got to work your way up, which is tough for a guy that, or that he probably doesn't see himself as that. He's coming off a knee injury. Like, to me, if I can get him instead of Mitchell Wilcox at the back of the tight end room, I would do it. But to me, like, the guy I like or I would target, you'll see, like, in free agency, I'm all about value. So Jonnu Smith, I think, is not at a high level as far as price point. I think he'd probably be around that $6 million range, and that's probably where I would go. It's like a little bit of a step up from what you got from Irv last year, and then you go to the draft, and if you get a chance, you get Brock Bowers. If you don't, you can get a Ben Sinnott in like the 3rd. Let's cook.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, if we paid Noah Fant $9-10 million, that's a wasted off season. That's like, God, that's mainly, I don't know how to compare. That's just a lot of money you could give to an extension. And you're just giving it for a tight end you can finally say is as good as prime Tyler Eifert, which is not, that's not what you should strive for. But free agency, Malik Wright made me believe this for a 3rd year now. Mike Gesicki, F it. Get Mike, Tanner, Sample, and then the draft, I love Jatavian Sanders round 2. Like my draft version of Donnell Mooney. I want best offensive or defensive lineman round 1, and then Jatavian Sanders round 2. That's all I want.
I wouldn't mind Jatavian Sanders round 2. I just have a feeling that when we get to round 2, it's gonna be like a D tackle. Like, if you had a choice, would you go to Vondre Sweat in the 2nd round or Fish from Florida State? You know what I'm saying? Like, I really feel like that's the sweet spot for us for a D tackle in my mind. I could be wrong, but like, if you had that choice, would you take the tight end in that spot, or would you take like a sure enough run stopping D tackle or Brayton Fizz, like one of those guys right there at that spot?
I love them all, so I can't lose. I love Brady. I love Sweat. I love Sanders.
And see, I think Sanders and Bowers, and you could kind of put Jaheim Bell in that conversation, where they're like the 3 guys that are just like, I think Ben Sinnott and I think Stover is really good too, but like those are the guys that are like super electric to me, and I don't know if Sanders is going to be there in a second. And so, like the guy that wants Noah Fant, or wants a better tight end, they're pretty much hedging their bet and saying, I'm getting Noah Fant because I know for the next 3 years I'm straight, and I don't think that Sanders is even going to be there. And even if he was there, I'm gonna just go D tackle, or I'm gonna, you know what I mean, or maybe I go. There's a tackle like Paul, who's super athletic, that I think I could work with, or maybe I got a chance to go get a Mahogany, like one of the best interior offensive line guys or something like at that spot. And to me, the theme of this all season is really the trenches. So that's the only, like the Sanders one I think could work, but it would be, I think you'd be kind of forced because you didn't do what you were supposed to do in free agency, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, also free agency, I feel like just the past few days we can see how stacked tight end has become. just Hayden Hurst, Uzama, Disley, Smith. It's stacking up. So obviously there's going to be one guy for me. It's Hayden Hurst. I mean, he's in my DM saying, I pray to God, Bengals sign me. Please get it trending. Get Hayden Hurst to Cincinnati. He's like, he wants to come to Cincinnati. That's all
crazy.
That's all I'm going to say. He wants to
But
come.
do you think that he should be playing? Like, you know what happened to him?
Yeah, there was a positive health update on it, so he's cleared to play. It's just
that's tough, bro. Like early stages of dementia. Like, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know. That's some scary stuff. I would hate for the Bengals to like be on the hook. Like, if something were to happen to him or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm not the Hurst one. It would be dope. You know, just that part of it is like there's a lot of people that say that he should retire.
Yeah, I think that one just depends. I mean, there's just been good, positive medical news on him with it. So as long as like the NFL says there's nothing bad happening to him, like on the medical side, then just treat him like a normal tight end on the market. And which that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat Hayden as like the bridge tight end now. Is you draft your guy, let's say Sanders, Sanat, and treat him like the Bills did between Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. See, throughout the season, Kincaid got more and more snaps, got more and more gelled into a tight end one role, which was like Kincaid's 1A and Knox's 1B. That's kind of what I see is like the rookie is 1A and Hayden's 1B now. But yeah, there's a lot of guys you can do that with, but Hurst is the favorite for me.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next position, trenches, offensive line, right tackle. That one's obvious. There's like 4 true options you can do in free agency. And which one do you want to do?
What? Say that or repeat that again. Which one?
There's like 4 options in free agency you can do. You know, Illuminor, on Weenu if you want to go for the money.
Oh, Weenu. Yeah, I want to do him because, you know, I was one of the people, you know, when the whole Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell thing happened, you know, I was a big, you know, Jamar Chase enthusiast and created this thing, Team Chase, and, you know, we put it up against Penei Sewell, and I always told people, like, you know, just because they picked Jamar doesn't mean that, like, you know, like I won that battle or something like that. You just don't know. And you watch Penei Sewell go on to be like, you know, all pro, arguably the best, you know, right tackle in all of football, like one of the best offensive linemen in all of football. And I think that the Bengals owe that to Joe Burrow to try to go and get the very best 5 guys in front of him, like finally, and just stop middle low balling it. I know people wanted like crazy stuff like Chris Jones and stuff. This is the Chris Jones of what you could do in free agency to me. Go get Mike Onwenu and then go to the draft. And I'm going to tell you this, the crazy thing about it, if Fuaga, Fashanu, any of them guys are there, Mims is there, you take them too. And it makes your team so much better. And everybody talks about being more explosive. It's going to help. Like, you already have your Jamar Chase. You're going to have T. Higgins for 1 more year. You already got that in place. You got Yoshi in place. You got, like, let's submit this thing in. The good thing about Winnie is that he can move to guard. So if you drafted Fuaga, whatever, Fuaga's got shorter arms. He might work at guard. But now you have the best 5. Volson is now like your 6th man. You know what I mean? Like, that's a hell of a O-line. And we learned this past season, if Burrow isn't there, you're nothing. So, you know, like and that's not to say you could give him the greatest offensive line of all time. He could still get hurt maybe. But at least from an organization and a fan standpoint, we should be saying we did everything we could to put the best 5 guys in front of him.
Yeah, man. I mean, offensive line, it's just, I feel like everyone's just talking about, right tackle, we get a Illuminor. Like, that's my number 1 guy as well on Weenu, but it's also like, I want some competition with Cordell. I mean, it was like second half once Jay came in, it was like for some reason Cordell finally played like people expected. But I mean, that's not enough. He still played 12 weeks, like a below average offensive guard. So, like, why not just also feel like left guard could be, it's not a need. Like, I'm cool with Cordell if he's the one starting, but, like, at the very least, give him a leash, give him a guy that could take the job. Because, like, last year we couldn't bench him when he was playing really bad because we had, like, Cody Ford, an offensive tackle, as our best guy. We had Jackson Carman, Trey Hill. I mean, no one was there that could realistically play better or at the same level as Cordell. So at the very least, get a guy that can, like Mike, that you could put at right tackle and guard, draft a guy rounds 1 through 3, and just find the best 5 guys you can get on the field. But moving on to the other side of the trenches, defensively, probably going to need 2 D tackles and probably going to need a defensive end, but that depends your feelings on Osai and Murphy. So what you want to do on the defensive side?
I think that, in a scenario like say they traded T. Higgins, the only way that I would say that I would even trade T. Higgins is if you gave me a first round pick, like it could be the back end of the first round, it could be in the high 20, it could be pick number 28 for all I care. I don't know, but I think it should be Jaguars pick number 17. But the main reason why I'm saying, like, if you did trade T. Higgins, is because now you're getting $20 million more in cap space. Go get me Christian Wilkins. Like, if I'm gonna trade him, that's the reason why you would do it, is to go get like a dominant guy up front. But I'm operating as though we're not trading him. If we're not, I still think we should get Christian Wilkins. But if we didn't get a Christian Wilkins level guy, then give me like Sheldon Rankins and pair him up with Tier Tart or like Daquan Jones or somebody like that, and then let's head to the draft. And then, like I was saying in that example, I think that in that second round, there's going to be a D tackle that I don't think I think that most of us will be looking at and saying, okay, go get that guy. Like if it's Fish or if it's Tavondre Sweat. I think a lot of teams, because his testing wasn't the greatest, are going to fall off of Tavondre Sweat. And I think for us, he's perfect. And I think if you did Tavondre Sweat, you try to bring back DJ Reader after the draft, and I think DJ Reader, like, coaching him up, with Marion Hobby as being the D-line coach and stuff like that, I think it could go a long way. But part of the plan to me is, like, if you don't go Christian Wilkins level, which I think is very possible that they should, then the lower end of it to me would be like a 3-tech that could, that maybe doesn't want to break the bank, closer to 30, like Sheldon Rankins. I could do that for like a 2-3 year deal, and then pair him up with another run stopping dude, Tier Tart. Maybe you could sell me on like Grover Stewart. I think he would want like $10 million a season. But to me, I would hate this to pay him and then go to the draft, and then Tavondre Sweat is right there, and I'm like, damn, I could have just drafted. You know what I mean? Like, so that's how I look at the D tackle.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, D tackle, I mean, first of all, you need Reader back. I feel like with his injury, it's going to be pretty cheap than what he should be, like $8 million, $9 million. Going to get a steal of a contract for him. But overall, the biggest factor is you finally need to get those depth pieces. I mean, what was the best year for that interior pass rushers when we had Larry O swapping with BJ Hill and Reader, making this 3-man rotation. None of them got tired, and all of them flashed every play. But now it's with Zach Carter and Tupou, which teams just run it down your throat when those two are in. And the other two have to stay in longer, and they get tired by the fourth quarter. Now it's just Trey versus everyone. But for me, I just, big thing, get your Larry O. You don't need to spend $20 million on a Christian Wilkins. You don't need Chris Jones. You just need to find some $4 to $7 million guy like Tier Tart, like you mentioned earlier. Get him in there, draft Tavondre Sweat. And you got this 4-man rotation once Reader's contract's up. then Sweat will just take Reeder's spot. Now you have this elite 3-man rotation by then, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple of what you could do. It's just, will they do it? I mean, reports came out that they're looking for 2 D tackles in free agency, but I think there's enough discussion on that front on Twitter. So let's move on to a position no one really talks about as much, cornerback. DJ Turner, don't know if he'll start. Cam, he'll be starting. Mike will be starting. The question is, though, is like cornerback 4. And usually every year that cornerback 4 gets a huge amount of snaps every year. So what are you doing on that front?
I think the cornerback one is a very intriguing one now. And I'm less likely looking at the draft as much as I think we were now that I'm seeing all these guys getting cut, like Tre'Davious White got cut earlier today. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that I want him, but it now changes up the whole entire market. There's 2 guys that I'm really, really looking at. I think that they could get Jeff Okudah for like a really, really low amount. They can go and get Christian Fulton. Those are 2 guys that I think they remind me of when we brought in Awuzie and Eli Apple, where these are 2 guys that are high round pedigree draft guys that teams just, probably had a bad year. You're getting and then this is the thing. Christian Fulton is Jamar Chase's like childhood friend. You probably wouldn't have to pay him but like $3-4 million. Like, it would be something so low. And Christian Fulton just 2 years ago was graded as one of the better cornerbacks in the National Football League. So, like, if Luke can get his hands on him, you have him challenging DJ Turner. He's 6 feet. He's almost 200 pounds. He's more physical. He runs a 4.4. Christian Fulton is a dog. I don't know what happened to him this past year, but I think that the free agency market and like players that I talk to, they believe like they don't think that Awuzie is coming back for one. And then 2, I think that the Bengals look at that cornerback room with DJ Ivey coming back off the ACL, whatever. I think that they're looking at that cornerback room way more than what fans are. And I think that they would address it. Maybe they get 1 guy before for the draft. Maybe they like a guy in the draft or whatever. I don't know how to. That's the one thing I slipped up on this year is like I watched a good amount of cornerbacks, but not nearly as much as I did offensive line in the trenches this year. So the later round guys, I'm not really hip to. I don't know. But then after the draft, man, I'm telling you, it's about to be like World War III. It's going to be so many corners that are still available. All those veteran ones like Stephon Gilmore's and all these guys like that, they could latch on to a team early, but a lot of teams like to see what they get in the draft. I just think there's going to be like 100 corners that you would be like, yeah, I'll take a flyer on him right after the draft. So I do think that from an organizational standpoint, I think that they're really paying attention to corner like a lot more than the average fan.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you tweet earlier about Christian Fulton. That one makes way too much sense, so we're not going to get him. That's how it works. But, yeah, I mean, I love DJ.
We're going to get him.
I love DJ Turner. I love Cam. Mike Hilton had a career season last year. So, like, draft-wise, I don't think you have to go round 1 for your guy. But free agency, I mean, I know people have been tweeting about, let's get Uzama back for a reunion. Let's get Hayden Hurst. I want Eli Apple.
You want Eli Apple?
Yeah, people don't. CJ for the locker room. Let's get Eli Apple a chance at least. Eli Apple and Fulton. I mean, do it.
They will fight. Only person you're missing is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in there too, to just like get a good old fist fight going in there.
Vontez is a linebackers coach that completes it.
I told Vontez the other day, probably like when Antonio Pierce first got hired, I said, man, you need to jump on that staff because remember they interviewed like Hugh Jackson and they got Marvin over there. Yep. Burfict should be the linebacker coach over there. It would be so fun over there. Like I think that team's gonna be fun this year. But I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, just get high. We need high energy, trash talking defenders. I don't know when I say trash talking, that means you go on Twitter and pull an Eli Apple, but
yeah, I don't want that. I don't want that at all.
I've heard some players that have come on here. They've said, they've been trash talking on the field. Cam Taylor-Britt, he said he got a mouth on that field.
Yeah. Yeah, he do. I don't think he will go on Twitter and do too much though.
He said he's not a Twitter guy. He's not a Twitter guy in that department.
I feel like right now the Bengals are in a spot where you ever hear like you see how everybody be like, man, the Bengals fans are so annoying. I feel like right now we should be so chill, just let it all play out because we know and we don't have to tell people no more. It's like when Joe Burrow's healthy, come on, bro. Like there's no way that we're not going to a minimum AFC championship every year. So it's like, what is there really to talk about? Like sometimes you'll see me like, what I call educating people, I guess, but I'll do like a back and forth on like, oh no, actually this is what happened. These are the games, but I'm not interested in the players shouldn't be interested trying to prove anything. Everybody knows what the Bengals are if Joe Burrow's healthy. Like I watched those playoffs and I sat there the whole entire time and I was just like, we will crush this team. We will kill this team. Like, oh my God, I can't believe we're not in. Like, and everybody's like, man, well, I don't think we were good enough and all this. I'm like, bro, look, when Joe Burrow got healthy, yes, this team wasn't as good as the year prior or the year before that. Yeah, I agree. But the teams that were there, I just didn't really believe in those teams like that. I feel like we should kill the Steelers. The Texans team in the playoffs, they look bad when they, Stroud wasn't. He didn't have all of his weapons. Remember, Tank Dell got hurt in the game that we played them in or whatever. So like. Or was that right before then? No, yeah. Matter of fact, Tank Dell was hurt before then.
Yeah,
but like
Noah Brown game.
Yeah, no Brown. But in the playoffs, though, I just like Joe Burrow's chances against a lot of those teams. Like, and you got to think, like, and essentially the Texans really had our spot. Like that would have been our playoff spot, and we probably would have been playing the Ravens. And remember that game was like 10-10, like at halftime. I just think Joe Burrow wins that game. Like, and the Ravens don't even win a playoff game, and that's how. I look at the Bengals like, and I don't really have to talk about it like that no more. I think everybody knows, like, when it comes playoff time, we're the one team that you don't. I mean, us and the Chiefs, but you don't want to run into Pat Mahomes, and you don't want to run into Joe Burrow in the playoffs, like at all.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's obvious. People don't seem it's obvious, but yeah, but moving on.
They know, bro. They know. They just don't want to tell Bengals fans that. Like, they know. It's the reason why they're even interacting with you is because they know. Like, think about it. Like, when's the last time you went and talked to a Seahawks fan or a Vikings fan? Like, you're not looking for those things because you don't see them as a threat. People are saying stuff to Bengals fans because they see us as a threat.
Yeah, but moving on to the last position I got for you, which is another that I've heard a lot about. The Bengals want to do this offseason, safety. Going to cut Nick Scott, so that's $2.3 million to your cap space. And safety is the most stacked position in free agency by far, and it's getting more stacked by the day with cuts. So
I love it.
What you want to do to that?
Man, there's so many options. I love Cam Curl. I don't think the Bengals have enough money to pay for him. I just like the idea of Cam Curl. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. I love Cam Curl. There's so Mike Edwards, probably like a $3-4 million deal you could do. Darnell Savage, those are guys like that. I know you saw Poyer Hyde. I think he's old now, but like I feel like you just need guys that are in position. There's so many guys like. Safety market is so beautiful. We had me and Ace do a show, Wincinnati Pod. We had Brad Spielberger, and he was going over like safety markets for like Geno Stone is like he was like $6-7 million. I'm like Geno Stone, like safeties are not about to get paid that much. And then once we come out of the draft too, oh my God, like those guys are going to be getting for pennies. Like right now, it's a buyer's market for safeties. And when I was talking about tight ends and wide receivers earlier, I feel like it's a seller like Dalton Schultz getting $12 million and isn't really, like killing it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really interested in like a lot of those markets, especially the running back one, the wide receiver one, mainly the offensive one. On the defensive side of the ball, man, there's so many linebackers out there, so many corners out there, so many safeties that you could go get younger guys. I ain't talking about just old dudes. You can get like some 25-year-old, 26-year-old dudes that just need the opportunity, man. And I'm really excited about that part. I think the Bengals will add a veteran safety, CB4, add the 2 D tackles, like you said, and then the 1 offensive lineman. The tight end one, we'll kind of figure that one out. I don't know. Like it's kind of weird, but I think they'll add 1. And then we head to the draft. Like those moves alone and $50 million in cap space, that's the reason why Christian Wilkins kind of pops up. because you don't really need that much to like, like the safety stuff, $4 million. That might be like a $1 million cap hit though. And you got $50 million. You know what I'm saying? If you sign Mike Edwards for $4 million and you give him a $2 million up front, and then you just got a $2 million cap, hit. Now you're down to 48. You're still like in the same boat. The only one I thought that could affect the cap was the Mike Onway one, but he's talking like 14 mil per. You give him a signing bonus of like 20. You know what I mean? And then now his cap hits like 6 to 8. Like that's super doable. Like, and that's the number one tackle. Like, so then when you solidify all these positions that we just went through, that's why the Christian Wilkins one is a real conversation to me. But as an organization, I don't know if they're going to want to put that much guaranteed money up front to get somebody like that. But the safety market and all the ones that we just named, you notice I'm not naming like cream of the crop guys. Those are all just like solid players that are going to help this team out, and they're going to be really good.
Yeah, man. I mean, the safety market, as you said, it is way too cheap. Like if Jesse Bates was in this year, he would have came back for 12 mil. Seems like it at this point. Geno Stone for 6, Mike Edwards for like 3, 4. I mean,
Geno Stone for 6 is crazy.
Yeah, but
after like what he had like 4 or 5 interceptions,
he had 8, like 7, 6, 8.
Something. Yeah. So like that, like you could say it's luck, but then after a while, you're like, nah, this dude's always in the right spot.
He knows what that's communication. He knows where to be.
Right.
And that's what we need.
That's all you really need. Like I still believe in Dax Hill. I just need some more depth in the room, something to solidify the position.
Yeah, man. So for me, it's like top 3 guys: Geno Stone, Darnell Savage, and like a Mike Edwards type guy. Just what they are, good at communicating. Some are better at tackling than others, but also they're cheaper than others. So I mean, you don't need to go get yourself a Xavier McKinney or a Cam Curl. I won't complain if you get those guys. Hell no, but
Cam Curl is exciting, bro. Like I'm telling you, like at Nick Scott, everybody just was like, man, he can hit. I remember Rams fans was like, man, he can hit. Like, yeah, he can hit, but he's wild and he doesn't know where he's going. Cam Curl is in a good spot and he will lay you out. Like he makes plays, man. I live in the DC area, so some of my family are Commanders fans, so I think their team sucks. But when I watch them, Cam Curl always flies on the screen like and I don't think he might want like $9-10 million, which is out of the Bengals price range. But I would really love that though. I think him in Lou's system would just be so fun.
Yeah, man. But obviously, as I said at the beginning, going to be one of the biggest off seasons for the Bengals in terms of in nearly every position besides quarterback. It's a bunch of new faces, but I think that's all I have for you today, Zim. Thanks for coming on to the 513 podcast, and make sure can't talk today, but and thanks for everyone listening to the 513 podcast. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow all the socials, links in the description. Make sure to follow Zim and his podcast. Says it right there, Wincinnati. Probably, I mean, he got like 100 times more experience doing this than I do, so make sure to subscribe to him. But any closing remarks, Zim?
No, man, I appreciate you, Nick. Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, check me out, zimwhodey.com, and check out the Wincinnati Pod.